Manchester United have been linked to a whole heap of strikers this summer. Who will they get? But more importantly, who should they get? Separating the nuance from the nonsense, we've got JJ Bull and Mark Carey. As reported by a whole heap of very smart journalists on the DealSheet, Manchester United have been linked to some really interesting players as well. Benjamin Sesko, Ollie Watkins, and Nicolas Jackson, if the price is right. Let's get into this, Mark. Manchester United are definitely in for a number 9 this summer, but they've currently got 2 decent options, some might say, in Zirkzee and also Hojlund. But it hasn't really worked out for them. Why?
I think with Zirkzee, it would be to misunderstand his profile and his attributes to even think of him as a number 9.
Right.
And I think that if you look back at his time at Bologna, he was the sort of player who would come towards the ball would stick. He's big old profile, really strong. He's a good dribbler as well, but he would come towards the ball and you'd have runners sort of coming off him. If he's then asked and tasked with being that number 9 who's designed to spearhead the attack and score 20 goals or more a season, I hope that he wasn't bought for that for Manchester United last summer, but he isn't that sort of profile. So to expect him to be that sort of profile would be unrealistic. For Hojlund, and we'll bring him in, I think that he's completely different in that he likes to run the channels, he likes to go either side and sort of maybe play with his back to goal as well a little bit. Is he strong at that? Not really. I saw a stat recently that said that his aerial duel rate and his sort of ground duel rate isn't that strong, so he gets pushed off the ball quite easily. Whether that's down to confidence sometimes, it would make sense because he's not been the most prolific in front of goal. So there's that element to it as well, but also he's being starved of service, shall we say. He's not really having the trust of his teammates. I looked at this is really interesting as well. I looked at the numbers on it and I think he's averaging about 23 touches per 90 minutes last season. That's in the bottom 10% of centre forwards last season. Now that's okay, I think, if you were to then have a high volume of shots to go with it. You don't need to always be involved in the attack. However, I think it's 1.4 shots per 90 that he's taking. No Premier League centre forward had lower last season.
Ouch.
So if you're having a low volume of involvement and a low volume of shots, what are you contributing to your team's attack? So I think this is really interesting as well, that it shows the link up between his teammates and him. Garnacho provided the most chances for Hojlund in the Premier League last season, but that was only 4 chances. Another stat actually for that as well is that Hojlund had only had 13 shots on target in the Premier League last season, which is frightening, really. I think Erling Haaland, by way of comparison, was 55. I think to broadly answer your question why it hasn't worked out, it's for different reasons, whether it's profile or lack of confidence or sometimes ability with Hojlund. But I know that JJ's got some really good examples of what Hojlund's trying to do, and it's just not working out, really.
Yeah. What is he trying to do? Because obviously it could also be Amorim's system, right? He didn't operate that well last season, and I know you've definitely got some examples of this. Can you show us a few?
Promising an awful lot here. So let's look at what the strikers meant to do in the Amorim system, or what we've seen from Man United rather than what we saw at Sporting. So we can see here that Hojlund is over here. He's the number 9 here. So what Amorim teams do, you'll see the player on the ball over where my mouse is. This is a regular occurrence in Man United and at Sporting as well. The left-sided centre-back. They're trying to get the ball from here straight through to someone making a channel run. So either the wing-back pushing forward or the striker. But the striker here is really important. And what Hojlund's doing a lot of, and clearly coached to do this, is trying to make this run in behind. Now, if you can drag a defender with you, you'll free up space to be able to get in behind, but Hojlund's not really looked after by the defender at all. The defender knows what he's going to do, so he gives himself some space. It's really, really easy, but Hojlund's told to make this run. So he makes this run, the defender's got far too much space, and the defender knows it, so he puts it into the wide area for a wing-back who pushes up and eventually goes out for I think it's a throw-in, something like that. So they gain territory, that's good. Now here's another example of, they know what's going to happen, there's little triggers. So the central centre-back, I think here, maybe the right centre-back, is pushing forward. Hojlund's standing offside. He's made loads of runs early on this game against West Ham, but you keep making the run, you don't get the pass. Eventually you slow down your running because it's a waste of energy. But when the ball goes backwards on the left-hand side, he knows what's going to happen. He's going to try and make the run. Drop deep, to bring the defender with you, running behind. This is what the ball they want to try and make. That's what you can see where Hojlund's looking. He wants to make the run in behind, but the offside line is going to have him if they try and make that run. And so Hojlund drops deep. Another thing that Amorim wants strikers to do is connect with the rest of the team and be able to offer a bounce pass. But again, Hojlund's first touch passing, maybe not the best at times. It happens, whatever. But then the ball goes short to Mason Mount, who's on the ball here. So Hojlund makes the run short, doesn't get the ball. Now he's free to make the run in behind because the defender's gone with him. But for whatever reason, his teammate doesn't find him with the pass. So either they don't trust him to make the run or they just don't want to give the ball away because it's too risky. the ball doesn't come to him. And so this is the pass they could make, in behind now, and he'd be able to get in behind. It keeps not happening. He's not getting many touches on the ball. Why is that? I think it's because of the runs he makes. They don't think he's going to be free, or he's not going to do anything with it. So here's an example of Ahmad on the right-hand side. Now, Hojlund is standing over here. So what the striker needs to do here is be free, make movements, drag defenders with them, free up space, create separation, so they're free to attack the cross. But Ahmad's coming inside here, taking on defender. You know the ball is going to be crossed to the back post. But Hojlund, who is being looked after here by a central defender, just cannot get free. He's been looked after touch tight. He doesn't have the aggression, he doesn't have the power to get free of this defender. Like, he's told to be here and try and create space, but he can't do it. And this happens in multiple examples throughout the league all last season. And by the time the ball's shot over the bar, Hojlund's basically been looked after the entire time. It's like he's there, but he's not really there affecting play. But you need a striker to be able to affect the game. So he's making the runs, doing all the things, but that's not really making a difference. And so here's an example from pre-season. We know that this is what Amorim's teams want to do. Here is a player about to play the ball into the half-space channel for a player running in behind. That's what they're going to do. A third man run little combination here, really smart. Get in behind. The ball's not perfect. But what you have here is Chido Obi, who's playing centre forward in this pre-season game. And it's very early in pre-season, so you can't read too much into it. But it's exactly what we've seen all last season as well. Now, what you want here in this situation, I think, is you get the player in behind. One player should make a run to the front post. One should make a run or be free behind that player. So Matheus Cunha should be free for this strike here if Obi makes the run. But Obi wants to get involved. And so when the ball drops short to him, he's standing exactly in the space where Cunha wants to be. They get in each other's way and the chance sort of goes. So what you want is a striker who knows where his teammates are, combines well, is doing what he's told, but also understands naturally what to do. And I think the problem you get with Hojlund is that he's doing what he's told to, but it's kind of going against his natural instincts sometimes. So you have a player working really hard to do what he's supposed to versus what he naturally would do. And then the players around him aren't combining, and it just creates a bit of a friction and a mess. And that's why he's not getting involved, not getting shots away. And that's why he looks pretty poor.
Ouch. Anyway, before we move forward, let's go a little back, because here is Tifo's The Entire History of Football.
Today, football is the most popular sport in the world. Around 250 million humans play it, and about 3.5 billion watch it. But it wasn't always like this. The story of football's evolution is one of power, influence, and ruthless organisation. It spans continents, cultures, and languages. And while games involving kicking a ball have existed for thousands of years, this story of football starts on Monday the 26th of October, 1863, a little over 3 weeks before Abraham Lincoln delivered the Gettysburg Address.
All right, click on the link in the top comment for more of that. So we've got a whiff of what Amorim wants to do with his strikers. We've mentioned a lot of strikers at the top. One in particular got me thinking. Nicolas Jackson. Talk to me about how we could fit into this Manchester United squad.
Well, he's not the most prolific striker either, but I do think his main attributes, which I know JJ will come on to as well, but his main attributes that Chelsea fans really like actually isn't necessarily his ability between the width of the 6-yard box. It's his ability to link up play, run the channels, and then make space for Cole Palmer to do his thing. And I think that his strength was actually sort of shone more when he wasn't in the team. When he was out, I think it was through injury last season. I think the suspension in there as well. But actually, we saw a lot of Cole Palmer struggling for Chelsea last season while Jackson was out of the side, because the attributes that he offered towards the wider team were actually being missed. So stretching the play and making those runs in behind or trying to get into the box as much as he can was being disruptive to the opposition defence, and it made space for other people. And the reason why I think this is interesting from a Manchester United perspective is for that exact reason, that he can maybe take players with him in a bit more of a considered, nuanced way than Hojlund potentially. We'll discuss that, and then make way for a Cunha or an Mbeumo to arrive in those pockets, either on the edge of the area or in other areas as well. So I think that we can talk about his attributes as an individual, but what he can contribute towards the wider team dynamic, especially in a Manchester United context, is where I think it gets really interesting.
Okay, fascinating. Jackson obviously might be surplus to requirements at Chelsea. Why isn't it working for Maresca? And why are we seeing him put on the market in that respect?
I don't know how much it's not working with Maresca or whether Maresca, doesn't like him. I just think, as much as anything, he had the opportunity to upgrade in Liam Delap and in João Pedro, and I think they both do what Nicolas Jackson does, but just better, and also provide a rotational option as well. So Liam Delap is really strong, really powerful at running in behind. he's arguably more of a clinical finisher, or I'd probably say that he's got a higher ceiling in terms of his ability to finish as well. So he's kind of already better at the Jackson attribute there. Jackson's attribute at linking play and dropping in, which is pretty decent, I'd argue probably isn't quite on the same level as João Pedro, who's particularly good at that sort of small space sort of area. I saw a press conference with Maresca recently that he said as much. He said the reason that we've brought João Pedro in is to play against those low blocks, knowing that Chelsea are going to be dominant, that in those tight spaces, João Pedro is arguably better than Jackson there as well. So I don't think it's that he heavily dislikes Nicolas Jackson, it's just that he had the opportunity to upgrade in those specific attributes that fit with the team, and they took that option. So Jackson still has some really interesting attributes, which we're going to come on to.
Defo. All right. JJ, I'm hearing Nicolas Jackson could cost between 80 to 100 million pounds. Is he worth it?
May I just shock you? I like Nicolas Jackson. And here's his pros. So I've done up a pros of what I think he's really good at. Now, he shoots early, which is a good thing. He makes runs in behind, exactly what you want. He runs into channels, is kind of what you want as well. Generates a huge amount of expected goals. Over the last few seasons, he's generated a lot of expected goals, which is what good strikers do. And also he shoots a lot. So he gets high volume of expected goals, high volumes of shots, gets away early, really good. Here are his cons. He shoots early always. Every single time he has a chance to shoot, he shoots. Is that a bad thing? Well, we'll see. His decision making, I've got examples of why this is not always the best thing. It is linked directly to number one. His physicality is aggressive, but he's not physical with it. So it manifests in different kind of ways. Defenders aren't often too bothered with him when he's got his back to goal. He consistently shoots under his expected goals, so he misses lots of chances. And there's some interesting statistical things with this that we can look at as well. But this is his expected goals generated since 23-24, and you see it's a 31.1, which is great. It's one of the, I would say, the highest probably in the Premier League. But his goals are 24, which is a big underperformance. So he's missing lots of chances. And you can see a lot of them are located really close. There's some wide, I don't know. Wow. There's a shot out here. For example, this one out wide here. Let's have a look at what that is. So this is him playing in the Club World Cup recently. I think he came on as a substitute later on. Now, Nicolas Jackson is wide here, and you'll see constant examples of this if you look through any of his past shots of the last few seasons. In this situation here, it's hard to see it without actually watching the video live, but you shouldn't shoot here. There's no way you're going to score from this situation with what's going on, and it happens constantly. Teammates frustrated at him not making the pass when he should make the pass, and this is decision making. But here he is making the run into the channel that Amorim wants his team to make. So if he's at Man United, imagine this. You've got the right-sided centre-back playing a ball over the top to someone running in behind, uses his body well to shield the ball. And in a situation, what Hojlund might do is take that wide and he'd win a throw-in or something like that. But what Jackson does is shoot, and the ball goes out instead for a throw-in. So I guess the same outcome, but in a different kind of way. Here he is playing against Manchester City. He's in the central striking position. He receives the ball from Cucurella. It's a bit of a turnover here. That's why City look in disarray in defence. But he does everything right. Shields the ball with his body, so he can turn and run towards the goal. Defender comes with him, cuts back on it. Again, great play, doing everything he should. But then decision-making comes in, and he rushes what he's doing and shoots in his left foot. And he does this a lot. He's right-footed, but he shoots in his left an awful lot, and he's never that good with it. Ball goes straight towards the goalkeeper. Being quite harsh on him here, because loads of strikers could miss this. But there's lots of other things he could do. It's just the wrong decision, the wrong time, the wrong execution. And then we come down to more decision making. Here he is running on the left channel against Man City, and the examples of him not playing the pass when he maybe should. So running towards goal, defenders are worried what he's going to do, pulls out the step overs, which way is he going to go? Look at all the teammates he's got. He takes it on and shoots in his left foot from wide again. You're not going to score from here. If you do, you look amazing. You look like, Van Basten or something. So if he scores and he keeps doing that consistently, then he's amazing. And that's maybe what an overperformance earlier in his career is. So we can have a look at that as well. But these are the things you have. But it also comes down to technique, body positioning, rushing shots. Sancho playing for Chelsea versus Wolves here. Here is Jackson. He is ready to receive the ball in space, great positioning. He should be able to then shoot that ball on goal, and it's a decent chance. But he's ready on his right foot for the ball to come in. Sancho plays it, and he's now positioned himself for his left foot, so he can try and sweep that in. And again, he keeps setting himself up for his left foot. I'm not sure why. He can sweep that in, it's still a decent chance. But in the last second, he corrects, and he's set up for a left foot shot, but pushes it on his right instead, and his body positioning, his weighting is all wrong, pushes it wide, punches it wide, and it's another missed chance, and he goes down to the ground holding his head. And so I think what you see with Jackson is he often gets shots away, but the crowd becomes frustrated with him because he's missing chances that seem easy, but he's generating them in the first place. And it's not like he's got lack of technique. He's a really technical player. Like, he's good with the ball. But as you can see here, I mean, Mark will explain this better than me with the expected goals and how it's changed over time, but it's the chances he's missing that makes him kind of frustrating.
Yeah, quite. I mean, if we look at this graphic, first of all, it's worth kind of going in chronological order because of the time that Chelsea bought him. So they bought him at the start of the 23-24 season after he'd had a really strong overperformance in front of goal for Villarreal. I don't think he hadn't had a full season at Villarreal as well in terms of playing every minute. But I think he scored 9 goals in his final 8 games in La Liga for Villarreal. A real hot streak, which you can see here by this overperformance, this blue line essentially being significantly higher than the red line. He comes to Chelsea, and for all the reasons that JJ has said, essentially if there's more red than blue, which there is across these 2 seasons, he is scoring below his expectations, scoring fewer than you expect based on the quality of those chances. And also, especially in this most recent season, both his expected goals and his actual goals are also trending downwards as well. So he's actually not getting those chances quite as readily, and then he's not scoring the ones that he is getting as well. So I think it's really interesting, especially with this next slide that JJ's got, that he's kind of hoovering up a lot of XG, but not necessarily because of getting into good quality positions and then taking them. He's just taking a lot of opportunities and shots, and they're not always to the best quality. And I think it's really quite interesting that you could put him in the Darwin Núñez category, because a lot of what JJ said, you could give plenty of examples for Darwin Núñez. He shoots all the time, not from optimal positions, but does, if you looked at the underlying numbers, suggests that he's accruing a lot of expected goals. And it's quite funny that they are really close to each other here based on this graphic, which is, non-penalty expected goals per 90 along the x-axis and actual goals, non-penalty goals scored per 90 on the y. What I think is interesting is because he's hoovering up quite a lot of expected goals for whatever reason that we've just described, if you were to only just get him improving his shooting ability and move him up the y-axis to actual goals scored, he's close to a Kylian Mbappe in the past couple of seasons in terms of actual goal output, and you'd be in the category of these people who are obviously recognisable forwards: Alexander Sørloth, Benjamin Sesko, Omar Mamouche, Gianluca Scamacca. These are all elite strikers. He's doing quite a lot of the right process, but just at the crucial moment, maybe making the wrong decision.
Yeah, you believe in your coaching, and you've got a decent recruitment department looking at a player like this. There is a variance where you think you can make that up.
Yep.
So a player like Jackson looks perfect. So you think you can get them back to their overperformance and, their expected goals being really high, if you can get them in those situations, and he makes the right runs that someone like Amorim would want in their team. If you can then just coach them to get that goal scoring back and give them the confidence that they're always the starting striker, you might get more out of them.
One thing I think is really interesting is because of the type of profile that he is, I think that the two go hand in hand in terms of him making some poor decisions, because if he's running in behind all the time, if he's making those channel runs every time, he's going to be exhausted by the time he actually reaches the 6-yard box, the penalty area, and then he's not going to make the optimal decision. So I think sometimes it's quite difficult to have someone who can do both, be an absolute, have an unbelievable engine, work the channels, and then be cold-blooded in the moment when you actually need them to score as well. So, as I say, if you can find someone who does both, then you've got an absolute killer. But I think that it goes hand in hand with his attributes, maybe as to why he's underperforming slightly, because he's offering those wider attributes to the team.
I never thought I'd hear Kylian Mbappe and Nicolas Jackson
in
the same sentence.
Don't quote me on that.
JJ, to buy a top striker is a lot of money. I can't help but think, but do Manchester United need to spend money elsewhere though?
Well, I think maybe yes. I think actually the most important part of any team is the midfield, and I think United have one that doesn't really combine very well, and I can show you what I mean by this.
Yeah, go for it.
So what often happens when they build or when they get to attack is you've got your two forwards now, Cunha and Mbeumo and Hojlund. I think Cunha and Mbeumo make them much better in attack. They're going to score more goals, create more that way. It's obvious because they're really good players. The wing backs are really important. We know they like to play these balls in the channel because the wing backs often end up assisting each other. So these guys push up, they're really important, the wing backs, and they probably need a couple more of those who are both strong defensively but also really good in attack. And these two are kind of a bit of both, not really there. Dorgu's got high potential, decent. Bruno Fernandes has to play. He likes to go everywhere and do it all himself. Amorim's talked about how he needs to trust his teammates more and not do that, but I think it's just not in his nature to not be everywhere all at once. We end up an awful lot of the time is Fernandes being in these sorts of situations. He tries to punch the ball through to players to get into here. And then what you have, whether through necessity or just this is what ends up happening, is you have Casemiro and Fernandes on the same vertical line, and you then end up with a bit of a diamond. So this is what you get. And I can show you that actually in practice and what that does, because there's a problem in how Man United line up and how they attack, in how they defend. I know that maybe doesn't make sense, because it's all linked. But what you see here is that exact thing I'm talking about. You've got Casemiro patrolling the entire midfield in the zone. Look at the space that he leaves open. So if this ball, there's lots of variables here, but if they lose the ball, there's going to be so much room to counter-attack. And as Amorim talked about in the last pre-season friendly against Leeds, there's still too much distance between the sections, so the defence and attack are too far apart. You need to be really close together to be able to make this work properly. So when we look at what they're trying to do, Bruno Fernandes here playing against Spurs in the Europa League final. This is him. He's going to try and put the ball over the top for Ahmad to run in behind. The exact same thing we've seen him trying to do, but I think he's doing it too early here. They're rushing, and so Ahmad's trying to make the run in behind that Mbeumo will be doing next season. But when they win the ball back, we now know what the structure will look like behind them. It's going to have loads of space there's loads of space either side of the midfield, because there's only one in midfield really, because they're too far forward. And so that is a problem. And what they also do, because Fernandes and Casemiro don't work as like a duo an awful lot, and he's not a defensive midfielder, but you should have protection in front of the defence always, so you don't end up with space like this. This is Athletic playing against them in the Europa League before. Now obviously they absolutely destroyed them, but you're still leaving space here, and it happens regularly. This is them playing against Brentford, and it's a different midfield pair, Eriksen and Ugarte. So last season Amorim couldn't get the duo right. I think by the end of the season he settled on, I think it was Fernandes and Casemiro is what they settled on in that too. And you've got to play Fernandes because he's their only world-class player really. And so what you get here is this space opens up and you can just put players into these positions behind the midfield. But the midfield is absolutely essential. This is what you want, is to have the midfield pushed up really high. They're going really tight man-to-man, so teams they don't have space to run into. But Man United are leaving too much space. They're sitting a little bit deeper. They're a bit scared of what's going to happen because they've seen what happens all the time. They're trying to put the ball in behind, then it turns over and teams can attack into these exact spaces, like too much room here, too much room here. If they push up, you're going to leave room in behind. There's just lots of different things that I think could be fixed with a really busy, energetic, physical midfielder. They lack physicality, athleticism in the midfield. Casemiro is a decent player, definitely in a 3. He's good as an anchor, but he's not going to be able to patrol the whole midfield. Bruno Fernandes is a number 10 who wants to float everywhere, and the two don't speak to each other. They should sign Danny Drinkwater and Kante from the 2014-15 season, or whatever that was. That would be good.
No, I agree. I mean, but even with the personnel, even if the best players, the system dictates that it is going to be a pair in midfield. The fact that you've got Fernandes, who is great for ball progression,
absolute
everything that JJ
as well.
said, incredible, but not as defensively minded. If you've got the two players, all you have to do is be a fairly average Premier League team and just have a midfield 3, and you've already got something of an overload in the central areas, and the games are often won in midfield. And even if Cunha were to drop in, and Mbeumo, he does do that very well, and Mbeumo, he does drop in and support his full-back or whoever it may be, centre-back at times, but you've still got the midfield pair being pulled apart, and those kind of wide channels can be exploited with an attacking midfielder or even just a midfielder from the opposition. So I think that we can talk about personnel, who maybe they need to get as more of a destructive midfielder, even though they've got Casemiro and Ugarte, but even just the system itself of having a midfield pair means that you can still get overrun going the other way. And
if your midfield isn't linked really and they're kind of disparate, what you're playing against with lots of teams in a man-to-man system now is that you need maybe an out ball, and you need someone who is a striker who can win these headers. And so what Amorim had at Sporting was Gyökeres, who was bigger than everyone around him in Portugal. And in fact, against Man City, there were examples where they're playing like the long ball direct to Gyökeres, who can win the header. So Hojlund is not going to win those headers, that's not there. But Jackson's not going to win those headers either. And I think another one of the reasons why Maresca is not that fussed about him is that he lacks the physicality to be able to win aerial battles and hold up the ball in those situations. And so you don't have the out. And that's like the big thing a lot of managers need now, especially in the Premier League.
Okay, well, before I ask you both which striker Manchester United should get, let's hear from Phil.
In New York, at a very posh art gallery, you'll find a digital interpretation of Lionel Messi's favourite goal, a hanging header for Barcelona against Manchester United in the 2009 Champions League final. The moving images, psychedelic colours and the flashing lights are, according to the PR blurb, an attempt to recreate a memory using data, emotion and space. It sounds like the Emperor's new clothes, but the joke's on me, because earlier this week it sold at auction for a cool $1.89 million. Nice money if you can get it, but what I want to know is, who was the mystery buyer? And is there any chance it could have been Messi himself? We bring you the best football stories of the day in the Athletic FC newsletter. Sign up by clicking the link below.
If Manchester United are going to buy a striker, out of the list of people we've mentioned, be honest, who would you go for?
Can I not answer your question and say that they don't need anyone?
Oh, okay.
To a certain extent. I think that they've added goals and attacking firepower to the team. They've obviously got Cunha and Mbeumo. You can talk about the combination of those number 10s all day, really, because we've got Cunha and Mbeumo as new signings. We haven't spoken about Ahmad yet as well.
Good point.
Mason Mount.
Yeah.
Whether or not you could have Fernandes playing in a more of a traditional number 10. Joshua Zirkzee playing in the number 10 role, potentially more of a comfortable role for him, and all of the combinations and configurations of all of those behind a striker as well. I'd argue that that's probably more important than necessarily having someone who is a plug and play 20 goal a season striker. It's difficult because they do kind of probably need an upgrade on Hojlund, but I think maybe what Hojlund could be asked to do could be different as well. So is there a situation where Hojlund does just stay more, or the central striker, stay more in the central area, and those channel runs that you were mentioning, JJ, could be more from the number 10 themselves, and then allow that number 9 to just stay between the width of the penalty area. You'd maybe play it more to the wide area, to the wing back, and then those runs can be made in a more of a familiar position for the two 10s pulling wide, and then it will hopefully allow that system and those connections between everyone to be a bit more coherent in possession or in attack, such that when the game breaks down, as you mentioned before, of closing those gaps, they're in arguably a better position when they're out of possession as well. So I've gone into a tactical answer for a very simple question of who should they buy, but I think that there's probably things to work with in the attacking firepower they've already added this summer to then start to kind of tweak the dynamic in the team tactics.
I wouldn't expect anything else, Mark. Thank you very much. JJ, what we're saying?
Well,
who should they buy?
I think the most classic Man United signing would be Ollie Watkins, because he's a Premier League 15 goals on average per season player, really highly technical, can combine with everyone there, and you want a player who will work in tandem with Mbeumo and Cunha, who can just dovetail with them, can hold up the ball, can run the channels, and Watkins does all of that. But it's also quite a new, modern Man United thing to do, to spend £50 million on someone who might not be as good as now in 2 years, because he's over 30. Once you're over 30, you're basically done. That's how football works now. I think everything we talked about with Jackson, I think he would do a lot of the things that Amorim wants a striker to do, but there are just clear deficiencies in his game, and it's not his fault. He's just not big enough, and he's not aggressive enough to be able to do those things. When I say aggression, I don't mean kicking people like he did in the Club World Cup. I mean you bully defenders out the way so they don't want to have to deal with you. You want someone bigger. I mean, for some reason, Alexander Mitrovic has jumped into my mind. That sort of player, when he was 26, would be perfect. Someone who can hold up the ball, can still do a bit of running, but is in the penalty box and can dovetail with Cunha and Mbeumo, so they've got that sort of thing going on. Now, that player's not really on our list. So Jackson's maybe there. Watkins is the kind of likely event. And so it's not that I think they should just stick with Hojlund and Zirkzee. They need someone else. But I think there are bigger issues that are systemic that they need to fix first before they can focus on tapping goals and running the channels. Hojlund, the more he tries to do what he's told to do, the harder it looks for him to do it, and the more confidence I think he loses, and you're in danger of damaging a player who could be really special if he went somewhere. If he went to Italy or Spain, I think he'd score boatloads, which is how you measure goals, I think. In boats.
By boats?
Yeah, 90.
That's fine. So you want a player who can do that. Those players are incredibly rare and incredibly expensive. United are not a top 4 team now, they are a top 15 team now. Wow. So you're looking for a player who can try and take them up an extra level. They're not really there, they don't have enough money to get them in. Jackson would probably make the squad better, but he'd be signed as a squad player. And so if you're paying 80 to 100 million pounds, you don't do that. If you can get him for 50, that makes sense. If you can get Watkins for 50, it's a bit too much, but maybe. If you're really trying to push it, I think they're better off trying to keep their money and trying to find Declan Rice or Kante or Caicedo, someone in that midfield who can make them stronger and harder to play against.
Okay, wow. What way to end it. Gents, I really appreciate it. Mark, JJ, Manchester United fans, Nicolas Jackson could be your striker.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including David Ornstein, Amy Lawrence and James Horncastle. With the latest transfer news and insights on every Premier League story that matters, theathletic.com puts you inside football